Sony's Xperia 5 series comprises more affordable and compact phones compared to the Xperia 1 flagship lineup. Every year, a new smartphone in the Xperia 5 portfolio comes after Sony releases an ultra-premium Xperia 1 device. Since we've already seen the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 powered Xperia 1V this year, it's time now to look forward to the Xperia 5V. Before telling the details, we request you to subscribe and follow to our channel. Sony did a great job on the Xperia 5 IV. It thoroughly impressed us with its versatile multimedia hardware, sturdy build quality, and long-lasting battery life. However, the company's disappointing update commitment and a few performance issues on the handset held it back from reaching its full potential. Will the Xperia 5V finally add the missing ingredients and make for an unbeatable compact Android phone? Here's everything we know about the phone and what we want to see. Will there be a Sony Xperia 5V? Nothing suggests that Sony won't launch a refreshed Xperia 5 model this year. The Japanese electronics giant has released a new smartphone in the series like clockwork since the launch of the original Xperia 5 in 2019. In fact, an alleged video of the Xperia 5V leaked recently, more on that later, suggesting that the phone is ready to step out into the world, possibly earlier than its predecessors. What is the Sony Xperia 5V release date? Sony Xperia 5, September 5, 2019. Sony Xperia 5 II, September 17, 2020. Sony Xperia 5 III, April 14, 2021. Sony Xperia 5 IV, September 1, 2022. Sony traditionally launches the Xperia 5 phones in the second half of the year. The Xperia 5 III was an exception with its April announcement. However, the device only went on sale in October 2021. That said, we fully expect Sony to announce the Xperia 5V sometime in September this year, followed by an October availability date. Sony hasn't started teasing the device, but that's understandable. The company only starts marketing new phones a few weeks, if not days, ahead of their launch. We'll update this section when we hear any official launch timeline or date for the Xperia 5V. What specs and features will the Sony Xperia 5V have? Sony's Xperia 5 models might be slightly cheaper and much smaller than its Xperia 1 devices, but they sport top-shelf specs nonetheless. While official information is yet to surface, we can make a few educated guesses about the upgrades the phone would offer. For starters, the Xperia 5V should feature the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processor since the Xperia 5 IV before it housed the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. Not only can you expect the new Qualcomm chip to bring speed improvements to the phone, but it should also be able to eliminate some of the heating issues that plagued Sony's previous device. The photography setup is perhaps the most talked about aspect of Sony phones. It looks like the Xperia 5V is changing things up this year with a dual-cam setup at the back, see leaked video above. We don't know the sensor configuration, but this would be the first time in the series that we won't see a triple-camera phone. Sony is probably ditching the
Ultra while giving a brighter 2000 nits display to the iPhone
main plus ultra-wide combo. The downgraded zoom setup on the Xperia 5 IV was disappointing, but at least the 60mm focal length served well for portrait shots. We're eager to see how Sony makes up for the loss of the zoom camera on the Xperia 5V. The leaked video shows two large camera lenses on the back, so it's possible Sony is finally switching out the 12MP sensors for higher resolution cameras. The front of the phone pictured in the leaked video appears to have thick bezels at the top and bottom. The top bezel houses a selfie camera instead of a punch hole cutout. We expect the display to remain as 6.1-inch OLED with a 120Hz refresh rate. The battery and charging specifications of the Xperia 5V also remain under wraps, but it's our reckon that the phone will get at least a 5000 mAh capacity, like its predecessor, and 30W wired charging should also make a return since Sony hasn't even upped the charging speed on the more premium Xperia 1V this year. Elsewhere, we also see the fan-favorite 3.5mm headphone jack in the leaked video, and we fully expect the phone to feature IP65/IP68 ratings. Colors parsed from the leak include black, white, and blue/gray options. What will the Sony Xperia 5V price be? Sony Xperia 5, $799. Sony Xperia 5.2, $949. Sony Xperia 5.3, $999. Sony Xperia 5.4, $999. The Sony Xperia 5.4 was not exactly cheap at $999. In fact, it was more expensive than the Xperia 5.3 in some markets. The series has shown a trend of getting pricier with each passing year, so we wouldn't be surprised if the Xperia 5V crosses the $1,000 mark. Although, that would really limit the reach of the handset with many other, more modern, and cheaper flagship phones already on the market. Should I wait for the Sony Xperia 5V? The answer to this question depends on how loyal a Sony fan you are. The Xperia 5.4 is still a solid device, but its price has barely dropped since its launch. There are many more powerful alternatives with capable cameras on the market right now, including the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, $1,199.99 at Samsung Galaxy S23 Plus, $999.99 at Samsung, the Google Pixel 7 Pro, $589.98 at Amazon, and the Zenfone 10, $699.99 at Amazon. Even the Apple iPhone 14 Pro, $999.99 at Best Buy, is a worthy contender if you don't mind iOS. Depending on your preference, you can choose from any of these options if you're looking to buy a new phone imminently. In fact, even after the Xperia 5V launches, many of these devices might make for better purchases than the Sony phone. However, you can still wait for the Xperia 5V to see what it's all about and then make your decision. It will most likely come with great multimedia hardware, but it may be overpriced, and Sony's update commitment might not be on par with other devices. Sony Xperia 5V, what we want to see? A more modern design. The Xperia 5.4 is definitely a sturdy and compact device, but its ubiquitous design doesn't do it any favors. Sony hasn't changed much for a few generations now, and it's time the company shakes things up a bit. Going by the leaked video, it doesn't look like much is changing except for the pill-shaped camera housing. Some might argue that Sony's design language breeds familiarity, but it can also be a bit boring to see the same aesthetics year after year, especially when Android phone makers are constantly toying with new materials, various types of camera islands, and other such design elements. A variable refresh rate display. We certainly hope Sony adopts a variable refresh rate display this time around. The lack of it on the Xperia 5.4 means you either experience the added battery drain of the 120Hz refresh rate or the not-so-smooth feel of the 60Hz option. There is no in-between and no option to further optimize display power consumption. If the Xperia 5V also inherits this flaw from its predecessor, it will lose out to phones like the Samsung Galaxy S23 series and even newer, cheaper devices like the Nothing Phone 2 that offers an adaptive refresh rate display. Better updates. For the price that Sony charges, its update policy of only 2 new Android versions and 3 years of security patches is a big disappointment for the current Xperia 5 series. Almost all high-end phones and even many mid-range phones offer at least 3 years of Android updates these days. We don't expect Sony to match Samsung's 4-year update commitment, but 2 years is not nearly adequate for a premium handset.